going to be working on gesture drawings. Gesture drawings are pretty interesting because they're not a finished product, but they're really there to help you understand how tall a person is and where a person can bend and move, to make you much more successful when actually drawing a person or incorporating them into your final artwork. So today we're going to be looking at step 1 of 3 for our drawings. So I'm going to explain how that works. This is a mannequin. This mannequin will kind of help us understand how joints do what's called articulating, which means moving. So we can see how the joints move. All right, so when we create a gesture drawing, we are basically drawing an advanced stick figure. You're making it, it's going to be 7 heads tall. A fully grown cisgendered female is 7.5 heads tall, and a fully grown cisgendered male is about 8 heads tall. For the sake of our demonstration and what we're going to work on, we're only going to focus on being 7 heads tall. For about our age group, it's pretty accurate. Some of us might be a little bit smaller or a little bit taller, but for the most part, 7 should work. So when we do our advanced stick figure, we'll include shoulders and hips, and we'll make sure that there are 2 parts to the legs and 2 parts to the arms. So how is this mannequin going to help us? Understanding that we are going to be doing a gesture drawing, and it will have circles as joints, because you can see that this is a circular part of our body because we can bend there. And then we will have lines for the bones. So just like we see in this piece of wood, you can't actually bend at the bone, otherwise it would just break. You can only bend at these rounded joints. So you can see it's in the wrist, it's in the elbow, and it's in the shoulder. In the lower body, we can see that it's in the hips, it's in the knees, and it's also in our ankles. So let's go ahead and start. I'll move this guy off to the side with our papers. So using a blank sheet of paper, we're going to fold them in half. And just like normal, we're going to work off a paper about this size. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in and make sure you guys can see all of my paper. My apologies for the movements. Okay, so however large you make the head is going to dictate how big the person is. So the wider the head, the wider the shoulders of the person will be. We'll get to that in a minute. And the longer the head, the taller the person will be. If you struggle to make an oval for the head, do a semicircle upside down, semicircle facing up, and then connect them in the middle by kind of rounding off your edges. So we're going to make our person 7 heads tall, and that'll be our goal. So what you're going to do is you're literally going to go through and you're going to measure the head 7 times. Don't just keep going down, because your fingers will definitely change as you do it. So you're going to measure the head itself 6 times, because the head is already the 7th section. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7 should bring me right about to the bottom of the page. And then 7. Notice that this head is about the size of the first digit of my thumb. It's a pretty good size for these size papers. So when we figure out our person, the first thing that we need to do is we need to figure out where the spine is going to be on our person. So if we look and we measure 2 heads down, so one full head, 1, 2, you reach right about your belly button. So if we go down 2 heads down, that's going to bring us right here to the bottom of section number 3. And I'm going to label it here so that I know that this is my belly button. If you're pausing the video, now would be a good time to pause. Now, from here, we measured those 2 heads down. So 1, 2, 3. We're at the bottom of section 3, right here at the belly button. You have about half of a head before you reach your hips. So we're going to draw about half of a head down. Then from there, we've got to figure out how wide our hips are. Our hips are as wide as our head from side to side. So we actually are going to measure again. So I'm going to turn my paper. I'm going to measure the face from side to side, bring it down here, make a little dot. Measure the face from side to side, bring it down here, make a little dot. At that dot, we're going to draw circles because those are our hips and those are joints. I like to draw my circles going in so that that dot is on the outside of them. Otherwise, the people can look pretty wide at the end. I am also now going to figure out how wide my shoulders will be. So I'm going to go ahead before I do that, and I'm just going to draw a dashed line that represents where that face is, side to side. Now for the head, what am I saying? Now for the shoulders, I'm going to leave about half a head for the neck. I'm going to turn this on its side because our shoulders are as wide as our head top to bottom. Measuring it, rotating it, and put a little dot. Measure it, rotate it, put a little dot. Again, on the inside, you want the outside edge to be where that dot is. Inside is the circle. Again, otherwise you get really, really wide at the shoulders. And connect them together. Again, I will make a dashed line so that you can see kind of how that head is, how it's that head tilted on the side and the head from side to side. Next step. This would be a good pause point. All right, so next step. Let's figure out how long these legs are. So the first thing that we're going to be drawing is this bone. This bone is your femur. The femur is the longest bone in the human body. Oftentimes students will tell me, well, it's really your spine. Your spine is made up of what are called vertebrae, which are these tiny little bones that stack into each other. So our femur is our longest bone in our human body. And if we measure it, measuring my head, our femur is 2 full heads long. So if I'm down here halfway through section number 4, I'm going to go all the way down to halfway through section number 6 to get my 2 heads tall femur. At the end, we have our knees, so we create circles. Now, we've got to leave a little bit of room for our ankles, but our lower leg, which is called our tibia and our fibula, there are 2 bones there, just like in our lower arms. That section is about 1.5 heads long. So we bring this down to about halfway through here. We make our ankle. Again, we make our ankle. And this is 1.5 heads tall. Then we're going to make feet. Feet from the front look like triangles. Trust me on this. Feet from the side look like semicircles with flat bottoms. Pause point. Information. Next step, let's talk arms. Arms are interesting because this top part of your arm, so this area here, is actually the same length as your lower leg. So this is called your humerus. So you've got your funny bone connected to your elbow. This is your humerus. Your humerus bone is about 1.5 heads long as well. So you can literally come down here and measure 1.5 and bring it back up. Also, if you put your arm down by your side, just like we see here, and you go straight across with your elbow, what was that part? It was your belly button. So we're gonna also notice that when you have an arm straight down, that it lines up with your belly button, your elbow and your belly button line up. So if I've got this arm going straight down, I'll line it up right there with my belly button. Again, this is 1.5 heads tall. I know there's a lot of information going down over here. Over here, if I wanted to, if you put your hand above your head, you'll notice your elbow lines up right with the top of your head. Again, that is 1.5 heads tall. This lower part of your arm here is called your radius and your ulna. It's 2 bones. You can actually feel them rotate. If you feel, you can feel one bone here, and you can feel the other bone at the bottom, and how they cross over each other. You can feel it move in your forearm. So we represent that by 1 head tall. So you're literally going to measure your head, bring it down, make a little mark. And again, at the end of it, you have your wrist, which is a joint. So don't forget to add a circle. I literally, most of the time, just do mitten hands. Bring it over. Measure, please. And then mitten hand. And that is step number 1. Step number 1 is just drawing the advanced stick figure. From here, your people can bend and move. Hips move as well. You can bend any of the joints, but remember, you cannot bend at any of the bones. You may practice doing this on another side of your paper or your folded booklet, but for the most part, this is our person. Step 2 will be adding what I call meat on the bones, which is muscle. Enjoy.